I never thought I'd be that guy who ends up writing about how he was betrayed, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 8 years now. We got married when I thought we were both on the same page, happy, stable, planning our future. Or at least that's what I believed. Things hadn't been perfect, sure, but I figured every relationship hits rough patches and we'd get through it. To be honest, I was blind to the signs until it all blew up in my face. In the first few years, Lisa was the kind of wife I thought I deserved. She was charming, witty, a little bitchy sometimes, but in a way that made me laugh. We had our fights, but they were mostly about dumb stuff, who forgot to take out the trash or where to go for dinner. Nothing serious. I always thought that was normal, but around the last year or so, she started changing. She'd be oddly secretive about her phone, quickly closing apps or changing the screen when I'd walk into the room. Small things at first and I'd brush it off. Maybe she was just stressed. At work or worried about something. I didn't want to overthink it. Then came the big sign. She started going out with her friends more, but she'd often come back late, smelling like perfume I didn't recognize and sometimes acting a little too defensive when I'd ask her about her night. I'd catch her lying about where she was, saying she was at a coffee shop with her friend Sarah, but I'd see her name pop up on some guy's text thread, and she'd quickly change the subject. Still, I didn't confront her because I wanted to believe she loved me. I convinced myself she was just stressed or maybe sneaking around because she was bored. Still, the gut feeling kept gnawing at me. Then, about 3 weeks ago, I noticed her phone was out of reach more than usual. I decided to take a quick look while she was in the shower. I've never done that before, but something was off. I found messages, flirty, explicit text exchanges with her best friend's brother, Jake. I recognized his name from family gatherings. We exchanged friendly hellos. But reading those texts, I felt sick. She was talking about fucking him, about how she couldn't wait to see him again, how she was bored of me and needed something more exciting. I was stunned. I couldn't believe my wife, my partner, was cheating on me with someone I'd always considered harmless. That night I didn't sleep. I just sat there, staring at the screen of her phone, trying to process what I'd uncovered. I'd known something was wrong, but I'd never imagined it'd be this bad. The betrayal hit hard. I mean, I loved her, or at least I thought I did. But what kind of person does this? Cheats with her best friend's brother while we're supposed to be building a life together. I felt a mixture of anger, hurt, and this deep, gnawing sadness that I couldn't shake. I couldn't believe I was in this mess, and I knew I had to confront her. But I wasn't ready yet. I just sat there, staring at her messages, trying to hold back the tears and the rage that was bubbling up inside me. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but everything in those messages was so clear. She was lying right to my face, and I'd been so blind that I didn't even notice how distant she'd become. I mean, she'd always been a little bitchy when she didn't get her way, but this was something else. I spent the next couple of days walking around in a daze, trying to pretend everything was normal, but inside I was boiling. My mind kept replaying those texts, and I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs. How did she manage to hide it so well? Finally, I decided I'd had enough. I couldn't keep living in this fog of betrayal and denial. So I set a date for us to talk, just us, no distractions. I thought maybe if I confronted her calmly, she'd come clean and we could figure things out. Yeah, right. That was wishful thinking. The day arrived and I was nervous as hell. I remember sitting in the living room, my hands trembling, trying to find the right words. When she finally came home from work, I could see it in her eyes. She knew I knew. There was that flicker of guilt, but she played it off with her usual bitchy attitude, acting like I was overreacting. She said she was tired, that I was paranoid. She told me I was imagining things, that she never would cheat on me. But her voice was shaky and her eyes darted everywhere, trying to avoid mine. I couldn't stand her lies anymore. I told her I knew about Jake, showed her the messages. That's when the fireworks started. She immediately tried to deny it, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, that Jake was just a friend and I was blowing things out of proportion. She threw in some classic lines, said I was paranoid, insecure, jealous. That I didn't understand her need for excitement, but I was done buying her bullshit. The anger exploded inside me. How could she lie so easily? How could she betray me like this during our anniversary trip, a time I thought was supposed to be special? She started crying, throwing the usual tantrum, saying I was overreacting, that I was being dramatic, that she was stressed out and needed a break, that she loved me but was just looking for some fun. Fun. During our anniversary. While she was cheating, while she was lying, the whole thing made me sick. I told her I wanted to know the truth. What else was she hiding? Was there more? And she just sneered, said I was making a big deal out of nothing, that I was paranoid and insecure, that if I kept pushing, she'd just leave. That's when I realized I was dealing with someone who didn't care about honesty, only her own selfish needs. I felt this terrible mix of anger and heartbreak. I couldn't believe she was capable of this level of betrayal, especially after all these years. It was like everything I thought I knew about her was a lie. And I knew without a doubt that my world was shattered. She's not the woman I married. She's a lying, cheating brat who just threw 8 years of marriage in the trash for some fleeting thrill with Jake. I've never felt so betrayed, so stupid for trusting someone so completely. I walked out that night, not knowing what the fuck I was supposed to do next, but knowing that my life would never be the same. After that confrontation, I didn't go straight to bed. I just sat on the couch, staring at nothing, trying to process what had happened. My mind was racing, thinking about all those moments I missed, all the signs I ignored. The late nights, the little lies she told. And then it hit me, I'd been a fool. I had loved her, trusted her, and she'd been screwing someone else the whole time. That realization was like a punch to the gut, but also a strange kind of clarity. I knew I couldn't stay in this relationship. Not after she lied so easily, so convincingly. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy heart but a clearer head. I knew I had to plan my next move carefully. I wasn't about to let her walk all over me. I started thinking about how deep her betrayal ran, especially after I found out about the pregnancy. Yeah, she's pregnant with Jake's kid. That's what pushed me over the edge. I mean, how much worse could it get? I was already crushed, already feeling humiliated, but the pregnancy. That was a whole new level of pain. I remembered her telling me she was going to visit her sister last weekend. I decided I'd use that as my chance to gather some evidence, maybe find out exactly how far she'd gone. I installed a little hidden camera in our bedroom, just in case she did something stupid like meet up with him again. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give me some peace of mind, or so I thought at the time. I also reached out to Jake's sister, under the pretense of being concerned about her brother. I needed to get the full story, no matter how ugly it was. While I waited, I couldn't help feeling a mixture of anger and heartbreak. I kept thinking about those years, the plans we made, the holidays, the lazy mornings in bed, all of it ruined in a matter of weeks. I was so stupid for trusting her. She always acted like she was the queen of the world, so bitchy and dismissive when she didn't get her way, but I never thought she'd be capable of this kind of betrayal. I kept asking myself how she could lie so effortlessly. She's always been good at acting like the victim, especially when she's caught in her bullshit. That's why I wanted to catch her in the act. Finally, her day came back, and I watched her leave the house with her usual attitude, smirking, acting like she was already one step ahead of me. I followed her at a distance, pretending to be casual. She drove to some fancy apartment complex downtown, and my stomach clenched when I saw her walk inside. I waited outside until she returned about an hour later, looking flustered and a little more nervous than usual. When she got back, I saw the telltale signs. Her cheeks flushed, her breathing labored, her phone constantly in her hand. I knew she'd been with him. That night, I finally decided enough was enough. I confronted her again. I told her I had proof, that I knew everything. I didn't even bother asking anymore, I just wanted her to admit it, and surprisingly, she didn't deny it this time. She just looked at me dead in the eyes with her usual smug look and said, "What do you expect? I'm not happy with you anymore. Jake makes me feel alive. Maybe you should try harder instead of being so paranoid." That's when I lost it. I told her she was a selfish bitch, that I was done playing her game. That her pregnancy, yes, I knew about that too, didn't change anything. I felt like my world was crashing down around me, but I refused to break down in front of her. I held it all in, knowing that I'd need to be cold if I wanted to get through this. She was so calm, so dismissive, like she'd already decided her next move. That's when I realized she'd been planning this, just waiting for the right moment to reveal everything. My mind was racing. Do I leave? Do I fight? Or do I stay and try to fix this mess? Honestly, I didn't know what to do. All I knew was that I'd never felt so betrayed, so humiliated in my entire life. And the worst part, I still loved her. That's what kills me the most, loving someone who's capable of such total disregard for what we had. After that night, I couldn't sleep. My head was a mess of emotions, anger, sadness, betrayal, and a sick sense of hopelessness. I kept replaying everything in my mind, trying to find a way to fix this, but deep down I knew I was fighting a losing battle. She had already made her choice. Lisa, my wife, the woman I had trusted for so many years, was now just a stranger to me. That realization cut deeper than anything I'd ever felt before. I spent the next couple of days doing what any betrayed husband would do. I gathered everything I could. I printed out her text messages, took screenshots of her affair with Jake, and even kept a few recordings of her speaking about all this in case I needed them later. I knew I had to be prepared for whatever came next. I also reached out to a lawyer, just to understand what my options were, especially considering the pregnancy news. I needed to know if I had any legal ground to do something about the child or the situation overall. Meanwhile, Lisa kept acting like nothing was wrong. She'd come home from work, smirking, acting bitchy like she always did, throwing around her usual attitude. Honestly, she was so good at playing the victim when she was caught, blaming me for being paranoid, saying I was insecure. But I could see through her act now. She was a lying, manipulative bitch, and I was just starting to realize that I'd been a fool for trusting her all these years. One day, I finally summoned the courage to ask her outright if she was pregnant with Jake. Kid, she looked at me, that smug smirk on her face, and said, "Maybe I am, maybe I'm not, what's it to you?" I felt my blood boil. I told her I already knew, that I had proof, and that I was done pretending like everything was normal. She just shrugged and said, "You should be happy for me, I deserve to be happy. Maybe I'll keep it, maybe I won't, none of your business." That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about cheating anymore. It was about her throwing her life away, playing head games, and dismissing everything we had as just some joke. I knew I couldn't stay in this toxic environment anymore. I had to do something, but what? Part of me felt like confronting her again, demanding she leave and that I'd take full custody of whatever child was coming. Another part of me just wanted to walk away, cut all ties, and rebuild my life from scratch. I thought about going to her workplace, telling her boss what was going on, maybe even exposing her to her friends and family. The thing was, I was so hurt, so angry, I just didn't care about the consequences anymore. I wanted her to feel how much she'd broken me. One afternoon, I finally decided to lay everything out on the table. I sat her down in the living room, looked her in the eyes, and told her I was done. Done with her lies, her manipulations, her cheating. I told her I wanted a divorce and I wanted her out of the house immediately. I refused to be her punching bag anymore. She scoffed, told me I was overreacting, that I was just jealous and insecure. She said she'd never cheat, that I was imagining things, that she loved me. But her words sounded hollow, and her face was cold and dismissive. I told her I had all the evidence I needed and never wanted to see her again. The day she finally left was like a huge weight lifting off my shoulders, but it also felt like I was losing a part of myself. I watched her walk out the door, still with that bitchy smirk, and I knew it was the end of the line. I felt numb but oddly relieved. I realized I'd been living in a lie for so long. And now I finally saw the truth. She was never the person I thought she was. The betrayal cut so deep that I wondered if I'd ever trust anyone again. But I also knew that I'd survive this somehow. I always do. After Lisa left that day, I was left with nothing but my own thoughts and the mess she'd left behind. The house suddenly felt huge, empty, and cold. It was like I had been living in a shadow of what I thought was my life. I spent the first few days just trying to breathe, trying to process everything. The betrayal, the lies, the pregnancy, that whole sickening package. I kept thinking about what I should do next. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore, not after she lied, cheated, and dismissed everything we had built. But more than that, I felt a deep sense of loss, like I'd lost my best friend, my partner, the person I thought I was going to spend my life with. I reached out to a close friend, Mark, who's been through some rough breakups himself. I needed someone to talk to, someone who wouldn't judge me, just listen. I told him everything about the texts, the affair, the pregnancy, the confrontation. And I told him how I felt so stupid for not seeing the signs earlier. Mark listened patiently and then said, "Man, you gotta focus on yourself now. You can't fix what she did, but you can fix yourself. Get rid of her toxic ass and start rebuilding from there." That advice stuck with me. I decided I'd cut all contact with Lisa for now. No calls, no texts, no seeing her, nothing. I even changed my number and blocked her on social media. I knew she'd try to manipulate me again if she could. I also started seeing a counselor. I needed help processing all these feelings, anger, sadness, betrayal, and figuring out how to move forward. It was a long process, but I was determined to heal, even if the wound was still fresh. Meanwhile, the pregnancy news kept haunting me. I couldn't believe she'd actually go through with it, knowing full well she'd lied to me for months. I wondered if I should try to be involved with the child, or if I should just wash my hands of it all. Part of me felt terrible about abandoning her if she decided to keep it, but another part knew I couldn't be with her anymore. She had destroyed what little trust I had left, and I didn't see how I could ever be around her again without feeling this intense rage and hurt. One night, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the ceiling, and I realized I'd have to make peace with what had happened, no matter how much it hurt. I thought about the years I wasted, the dreams I had for us, and how all of it was gone in an instant. I kept asking myself if I'd ever be able to trust someone again, or if I'd just become another bitter guy who got burned. Honestly, I don't know if I'll ever fully recover, but I do know one thing. I'll never let someone treat me like that again. I'll never let myself be blind to the truth, no matter how much it hurts. Looking back, I guess the biggest lesson I've learned is that love can be blind, but betrayal is a brutal wake-up call. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's almost impossible to repair. I thought I knew Lisa, but I was so wrong. Now I'm just trying to get through each day, rebuild my life, and remember that I'm worth more than someone who treats me like trash. It's not easy, but I refuse to be a victim of her lies forever. I'm still standing, even if I'm battered and bruised, and someday I hope to find someone who actually values honesty and respect. Now, looking back, I realize that this whole experience has changed me in ways I never expected. At first, I was just angry, so angry I couldn't see straight. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly kind of broken. But through all the pain, I've started to see some lessons. The most important one is that no matter how much you love someone, you can't ignore the signs when they start slipping away or when they start lying. Ignoring those signs only makes it worse in the end. I also learned that revenge isn't worth it. I thought about doing some petty things, like exposing her to her family or trying to ruin her reputation, but I realized that wouldn't bring me peace. In fact, it would only make me feel worse. The only thing that matters now is healing, finding a way to move forward without bitterness eating me alive. I've started to rebuild my confidence piece by piece, and I've come to accept that not every story ends with happily ever after. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is walk away and learn to trust yourself again. I won't pretend I don't still feel pain, because I do. But I also feel a strange sense of relief. I'm finally free from her toxicity, from her lies, and from the chaos she brought into my life. I know I'll be okay. It's going to take time, and I may never fully forget what she did, but I refuse to let her define me. I want to find happiness again, even if it's just small moments for now. To anyone in a similar situation, trust your instincts. Don't ignore the signs, no matter how much you want to believe in the best of someone. When betrayal happens, it's going to hurt badly. But remember, you deserve honesty and respect. Don't settle for less. Take care of yourself first, and don't be afraid to walk away from people who only bring misery. Life is too short to waste on lies and deception. In the end, I learned that the only person responsible for your happiness is you. No matter how much it hurts now, I promise it gets better. Time helps, and so does knowing your worth. Lisa might have broken my heart, but she didn't break my spirit. I'm still here, still fighting to rebuild my life, and I won't let her betrayal define my future. That's the final lesson I'll carry with me.